everyone. It's me, Kirsten. Hi, how you doing? What's going on? This is the It's Giving Mystical podcast, and this is your podcast for the week ahead, the week of July 26th. And what a wild week it's been. What a wild week it's been. How did the Seven of Swords treat you? I really want to emphasize that the Seven of Swords is such a perfect example of why we want to take our time with tarot. Because you look at the Seven of Swords, you look it up in the book, or you Google it, and it's like deception, someone's tricking you, you can't trust the words that people say. If they're a little more sophisticated, they might say self-deception. And it's like, okay, nod my head, that's part of life. But break it down, like take your time. Sevens, mystery, swords, language. What does it mean to get mysterious with our language? What is interesting about the mystery of language? What is interesting about getting a little bit maybe fuzzy or confused or curious or nonlinear or dreamlike with language as a way to unlock its power? There's a practice in shamanism called word deconstruction, where you literally repeat the energetics of a word until it shifts form, until it unlocks. Because we assign words a type of concrete value that they actually don't really want to hold. We can have a word and it can live with a type of lock around it, an energetic binding around it. I've told you guys this before, but there's this teacher called Milagros Phillips. She does a lot of anti-racism work. And one of the first things she had me do in a workshop we were in was find out where racism lives in my body. One of the things she said, and I think it's a brilliant way to even begin these conversations, is whether you feel like America is racist or you feel like racism is something that matters to you, you are kidding yourself if you don't believe that racism lives in your body. That power dynamics and this country, which was built on slave labor, if you don't believe that racism lives in your body. It's the same thing with many, many words. I remember doing an exercise with someone and the energy was around helplessness. And they didn't like that word. That's not something they wanted to have. But there was such a resistance to it that the word took on a negative connotation. It like locked into their system. And so we sat and deconstructed that word helpless. And what it came down to was that they possibly, many things came out of that, but that they needed to help less, that they had been so conditioned and so in the habit of helping, of giving, of serving, and it was depleting them. And so it's not that they were helpless, it's that they needed to help less. But isn't it interesting that that word could take on such a different shape in the matter of a few moments? That's word deconstruction. That's the importance of semantics, the importance of understanding the energetic vibrational resonance of words. So when the Seven of Swords comes up, Seven of Words comes up, it's interesting what mysteries might reveal themselves, might become unlocked, might transmute around the energy of air, around the energy of our words, our thoughts, our language. Words are so powerful, and they are such a medium. They are just a representation, and we believe that the words hold a weight, puts a primacy around our mental energy that maybe isn't appropriate. Maybe it asks too much. It asks too much of our air energy to find concrete resting places in words. And maybe what we actually need to do is soften our handle and get more creative, more playful with words as a way to respect and represent the air energy that they're actually taking cloud form around, if that makes sense. Interesting week, so much happened, and you can see how these courses, these lines, these thought patterns, these communications felt like this is the way it is, this is the way it will have to be. And then that shifted. There's a lot of Uranian energy around right now, which means that things will take the shape of the unexpected. And for those of us who are asking, so is it better now that we had the Capricorn full moon? You are stronger now for sure. You are more grounded in your body. You are more in your authority than you've been. It doesn't necessarily mean it's easier, but are you playing on a next level? Are you channeling larger amounts of energy? Has your capacity to be with truth and light and energy expanded? Yes. I know the astrology for the fall is kind of wild, and I've heard some astrologers say some kind of interesting things about what's going to happen coming through, especially in the United States, coming through the election season. I'm just going to run through with you quickly what the numerology looks like. So we know that we are in this month of the devil and the soul, and almost at the solar plexus and the chariot. We understand that there is this very interesting investigation around our authority and our power and how we've held that or how we've bound that and what we might want to do to release more power, more impact in our movements and in our action in the world, more focus, more concentration, more sourcing into something greater than ourselves. And we're going to move into this next month, which is going to be strength and the tower. What wakes up for you when I tell you that in August we'll be dancing with the Strength card and the Tower card? And what does it awaken in you when I say in September we're going to be dancing with the Hermit and the Star? And what does it say to you in October when I tell you that we're going to be dancing with the Wheel of Fortune and the Moon? And then what does it say to you when I tell you in November we're going to be dancing with Justice and the Sun? It's just an interesting trajectory. And no, it might not be easy, it might not be done, but is it right? And I was trying to explain to my son, he was asking me some questions about the election and what's happening and the way he hears people talking about it. And I really have to go back to that Martin Luther King quote that the arc of history is long and it bends towards justice. Like it bends towards justice. And that doesn't mean that we move in a linear way, and it doesn't mean that there's not this kind of constant stretching and contraction or expansion and contraction, and that movement in the moment might feel unstable. But I have to believe that it is reaching us towards justice, that it is arcing towards justice. Which brings me to the energy of the week ahead, which is the Moon card. The Moon card is not the card of straight lines. It's not the card of sunny days. It's not the card of clarity. The Moon card comes in when something is getting processed on an unconscious level. And I'm telling you, these things all happen for a reason, but you don't have the Seven of Swords reminding us that it's not the card of deception as much as it's the card of mystery around language, mystery around words. It makes so much sense that would lead us into Moon energy. It makes so much sense that something might get revealed or seen or shaken up that wants to continue to process under the light of the moon, like process in the depths and dark spots. It might be working out shadow. My teacher, Stephen, said something about shadow contaminants. He said something really interesting about how we're learning to ground in a new way. And one of the things that's happening right now, you might be feeling a lot of nervous system activation and a lot of ungrounding. It's interesting. I'm actually having a hard time catching my breath while I record this, and I believe there's something here about that. Having a hard time catching our breath, having a hard time finding the ground. And what he says is that we're learning to ground in a new way, and that we are processing the shadow contaminants that taught us there was only one way to ground. So take that for what it is. It resonates deeply with me, but I wonder how it lands with you. And I just offer it during this week ahead where the moon is going to be with us, this concept of shadow contaminants. The shadow is part of the experience, of the lived experience. The contaminants are kind of the dust or the dryness or the things that we are done with, the things that have been shaken out into the light, the things that we have taken back in terms of empowerment, but still are remaining in our field, like the last few sand crystals that need to get shaken out of your clothes after you visited the beach. The moon card always activates our dream space. It activates our creative spaces. It activates the unconscious. It activates any investigation into who you are and why you've come is so supported by the moon. I always say this, but I'll keep on saying it. I also think the moon energy is speaking directly to our relationship with our mother, our relationship with the divine mother, our relationship to mother archetypes in general. So the mother within you, the mother around you, and how that feels. What's that like? What shadow contaminants might be getting shaken up around this idea of the mother, around this idea of how you mother yourself, how you mother others, how you allow yourself to be mothered. Does that feel? It's interesting. As I say that, I hear the word smother. And that's a beautiful example of Seven of Swords. It's a beautiful example of word deconstruction. Mother, 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 and it moves into smother. And I'm having a hard time breathing while I record this podcast. What's coming up, man? What are we processing? What is activating as I share that with you? Something to think about, possibility around doing a word deconstruction around the word mother. If that's something you're not familiar with, you can DM me and I can help you work through that process. It's a beautiful, beautiful process, incredibly empowering. One of those things that even if you only do it for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, even if you gesture towards it, I promise you there are results to be had. There's healing to be had. Mother energy is with us when the moon card shows up. Dream space is with us. My dreams have been so active. I don't know about you. And so thinking about what information, what stories, what is being processed in the dream space and what it wants to show you, what it wants to reveal to you. When the moon card is with us, things appear differently. It's not that we can't trust our vision, it's that we want to stay really curious about the way we're seeing things. Things can take on maybe more menacing energy than they deserve. They can also take on this feeling of fantasy. They can also take on fantastical representation of what's really there. So when the moon card's with us, there's just this kind of questioning around concrete energy and what is true and what is concrete and what is the material and what can I count on. And I'm telling you, there's definitely some energy here around mothering energy, and it feels less like a human, which is possible, and more like maybe the ways that I'm going to throw this out there, the ways that safety and protection can actually stifle us. This idea of doing it in a way where it's that idea of the way that your mother's like, be careful, be careful, be careful. Yes, and where are you too careful? Where are you smothering your own exuberance, your own energetic desires because you worry about doing it in a way that's careful, or you worry about getting hurt? And I can mean that emotionally, physically, yada, yada, yada. But there's something here about this energy of exploration. One of the most beautiful things I ever read about the moon card was about the crayfish. In the classic deck, there's a crayfish. I think it was Rachel Pollack. And she said the crayfish is this representation of reaching a threshold. And when the moon card comes up, you are reaching a threshold. And the question is, will you take the great leap of faith? Like, will you leap forward into the unknown because it's where you're being called to, or are you not ready? And do you need to kind of crawl back into the water and just gather your strength about you? It's interesting that that's coming up here because there's just something about this energy of this week feeling like a gateway or a threshold, and this question for you, there's no right answer in it, but this question for you around, are you ready to leap? Are you ready to take the leap? And the moon card won't guarantee you what it looks like on the other side. The Fool card, that's interesting. The moon card is this leap into the great unknown. The Fool card makes that leap with pure protection. Like, nothing can go wrong. It's all life. It's all living. The moon card comes with this sense of hesitation, or are you sure? Or are you ready? Or be careful. And the reason the mother and the smother is coming through is because there's something about maybe checking yourself on where safety or caution is running the show because it's real and in the moment and appropriate, or versus it's old messaging, it's an old idea, or it's just some shadow contaminant trying to keep you safe. That voice of be careful to a 3-year-old is not the same as you today, grown human being. You can do more risky things. Just kind of measuring, being aware of the caution and whether it's coming from a real sensitivity to the scenario you're in, or whether it's coming from some old programming around what you're allowed and what's okay. This life is brief and quick and beautiful. And while we want to protect ourselves, safety and security is paramount, especially in our energetic field, we also want to notice when we're holding ourselves back. It's kind of an interesting message to come through, but it feels very alive. I keep really seeing this threshold. Question this week will be, are you ready? Like, are you ready to take the great leap? Are you ready to jump even though you're not sure what's going to happen? Can you embrace that I don't know with exuberance, excitement, and hopefulness and faith versus kind of hesitating because it's not all worked out? It's never all worked out. Again, we're in this deep moment of Uranian change and transformation. Pluto and Uranus and Neptune all activating in these kind of unique ways to really shake us up and to really ask us to confront things that we haven't confronted, ask us to handle things that we never expected to handle, and what will be. There's so much beauty in that, and there's also an awareness of when we're keeping ourselves safe and when we're just in the habit of keeping ourselves safe. Great risk, great reward, that kind of vibe. Moon energy. There's a wolf and a dog on the moon card too. This very specific energetic between the part of us that's tamed and the part of us that's wild, and the tension between those things, and just having a real sensitivity, a real curiosity about who's leading the show and whether that's appropriate for this moment or whether that's a remnant of old ways of doing things. You stand here today not the same person you were yesterday, definitely not the same person you were in late June, definitely not the same person you were 6 months ago, definitely not the same person you were 18 months ago, definitely not the same person you were as a little toddler who needed to be told to be careful. So just notice what's calling you forward, where your hesitation lies, where your fears lie, and to become aware of the way that fear is healthy and right and appropriate for the moment, and when fear is actually holding you back. Interesting messaging from the moon card. Feel into this gateway, this threshold, this desire to leap versus to rest a little bit longer. Both are appropriate choices. Also feel into this wolf and this tamed puppy and how they are wrestling in your own body and in your own field. The idea of which wolf are you feeding? Who needs to be in charge in this scenario? The tame me or the wild me? Okay, I leave you with that. Happy end of July. Take best care of yourself. If nothing else, be alert and aware of dream spaces, of inspiration, of the way that, you know how like you see angel numbers or you think about something and then it shows up in your field. Notice the nonlinear. Notice the way the dream realm is here in the present day with you. And feel free to follow those impulses this week. They might take you to places that you secretly really want to go and didn't even know it. All right, take care.